An immigrant runner, one of hundreds who worked Castle Garden Wharf in lower Manhattan, where the immigrant ships disgorged their human cargo. Each day he watched the arrival of his countrymen, and his heart ached at what he saw. Having been born in Temple Moor, County Tipperary in 1831, and raised in an Irish slum in America, Morrissey knew a thing or two about poverty. In Troy, whenever his father was able to find work, it had been at the local wallpaper factory or on the docks alongside other Irish laborers. Young John had grown up believing his family was dirt poor, but what he saw at Castle Garden made him reassess his circumstances. Gaunt, haunted Irish peasants arrived by the boatload, weak from dropsy and gout, clinging to satchels that contained all that they owned. They told shocking tales of the great famine that had ravaged the old country over the last few years, and of the horrific, disease-ridden journey across the ocean in hopes of a better future. It was Morrissey's job to greet these new arrivals and direct them to soup kitchens and boarding houses controlled by the Reinders organization. Mixed in among the many legitimate immigrant runners were dozens of con artists and land sharks, men who preyed upon the ignorant new arrivals. Later accounts of the era often characterized the job of the immigrant runner as that of a parasite, which may have been a bit harsh. Certainly the position straddled the line between charity and exploitation. Among runners, Morrissey developed a reputation as a tough though fair man who directed hundreds of desperate immigrants to food and lodging. In exchange, they signed voter cards and pledged their support to the political organization that Morrissey represented. On Election Day, it was Morrissey's job to see that these people delivered on their pledge, under the threat of violence if necessary. Along with tens of thousands of other Irish immigrants arriving in New York City on a monthly basis, Morrissey found lodging in 5 Points, the infamous slum neighborhood that dominated the 6th Ward at the lower tip of Manhattan Island. For a time he lived in a boarding house on Cherry Street and frequented a grog shop, or speakeasy, on Lower Broadway known as the Gem Saloon. 5 Points was a lively area, though the physical conditions of the district were awful. Laid out on top of what had once been a sewage pond known as the Collect, 5 Points had evolved from being mostly an industrial district of tanneries, glue factories, and turpentine distilleries to a residential haven for the city's growing immigrant class. Poor Germans, Irish, Jews, and African Americans were crowded into 2-story wooden structures built unsteadily on landfill over Collect Pond. The district contained what was ostensibly the nation's first tenant house, or tenement. The old brewery was a former beer factory that had been converted into living quarters. A 5-story monstrosity that glowered over the 5 Points district like a slovenly toad, the building housed an impoverished collection of newly arrived immigrants and freed African Americans. For less than $2 a month, lodgers resided in conditions that were stifling, overcrowded, and with a sanitation system so haphazard that the building and surrounding area were sometimes buffeted by waves of cholera that reached epidemic proportions. Fetid conditions in the old brewery almost guaranteed that the building would become the center of much violence and depravity in the district. In the sprawling basement, known locally as the Den of Thieves, gambling, organized dogfights, prostitution, and all manner of robbery and assault were not uncommon. For local authorities, be they police or officials of the Association for Improving the Conditions of the Poor, AICP, the old brewery was a virtual no-go zone. The belief was that if you entered uninvited, you were not likely to come out alive. Within the building's many warrens and hallways, violent crimes, including rape and murder, were so commonplace that years later, when the building was finally demolished, observers claimed to see construction workers carrying out bags of bones belonging to numerous murder victims who had been buried beneath the building's floorboards and in the walls. The abysmal conditions in the old brewery spilled out into the district, creating an area that became well known for general licentiousness and depravity. There was a saloon or speakeasy on nearly every corner, with drunks stumbling out into the streets to be jack-rolled by